Here's one of this week's big reviews, and it comes by popular request from the Samplecast Facebook page. I do get a lot of requests, and this one has been mentioned by a few people, so I'm pleased to bring it to you. Thank you so much to the guys at Cinematic Studio Strings for getting this to me in time to do the review. So it is Cinematic Studio Strings. It runs on the Contact player and the full version of Contact. There's a little bit of history with me and the products from the Cinematic range. Now, Cinematic Strings was originally developed in 2010, and although it's never been my kind of go-to library for strings, I did find that I turned to it when I wanted some nice flowing legato or some kind of quick easy mock-ups. Cinematic Strings 2 followed up in 2012. It was an update of the original Cinematic Strings library, but they'd added now additional samples, and given the interface and overhaul, I found it a lot simpler to use, and I did use it for sketching quite a lot. And now, bringing you up to date, there's Cinematic Studio Strings by the same developers. It's not an update of those two libraries that I've mentioned before. I want to make that absolutely clear. It's a whole new set of samples and a whole new concept as well. So the original Cinematic Strings 2 sounds nice and lush. It's got a really sort of grand Hollywood feel. Cinematic Studio Strings, on the other hand, is a Hollywood style section. It's a little bit more intimate. The players have been recorded exactly where they'd normally sit in the orchestral arrangement. Here you've got 3 mic positions as well: close, main and room mics, and they've also done a mixed position if you want to use that. It's already tweaked to optimise CPU and RAM, so that's a really good thing. There's quite a lot to this library. I'm not going to go through the individual articulations and everything it does. You can find out more information about that on their website. But I will mention a couple of things that are worth knowing. The articulation is via key switch. There's 3 different types of legato on there as well, and there's Sordino emulation for the whole library. So what did I like about this library? For a start, it's very simple to understand the interface. It's really easy to work out what's going on. Hardly needed to open the manual and look at it at all, to be honest. The sound right out of the box was nice. As I said, it's an intimate sound and it's convincing without adding any reverb. There is a reverb dial on the engine, but you don't really have to use it. In fact, they don't recommend using it at all. And I did find that the sound was realistic without having to bathe it in reverb, so that's especially an added bonus. I really like the harmonics articulation, especially with the violins and violas. They had just a really lovely tone. Difficult to describe, as you know, with sound, but check out some of the demos. You can hear the harmonics in action. I did like the legato scripting. That was very clever, and how the speed of legato responded to velocity playing on the keys as well. I remember when I had Cinematic Strings 2, I had to make my own multis in order to kind of get a good sketching tool. But this time around it was nice to have full ensemble patches already set up, so thank you so much for that. The price also seems realistic for what you get. It's not especially cheap, but not expensive neither. Runs in at $400 before you factor in any discounts. There are discounts available for previous owners of Cinematic Strings, and also they've released a studio piano. Unfortunately, it didn't get to me in time for this review, but I've heard some of the demos, sounds pretty good, and if you purchase Cinematic Studio Strings, you'll get 50% off the piano. There's a couple of bugs I found within this library in the scripting. Sometimes the notes get stuck and the key switches get stuck, especially when you're doing a lot of different articulation switching and using the sustain pedal and changing the legato at the same time. I realise this sort of thing is quite complex in scripting, but definitely that should probably be looked at before you guys do an update. But overall, it's a big thumbs up for Cinematic Studio Strings. Head to the podcast for some more examples of the product in action and some demos from the company themselves. Thank you so much for watching. That's just a small taste of the Samplecast, a weekly podcast and YouTube show for sample library geeks and plugin enthusiasts. You can find out more information at thesamplecast.com. Don't forget to subscribe.